hosted by Ubosele and Company. And would like to welcome you and want to believe strongly that, as usual, it's going to be an engaging moment with us here this afternoon. And I'm certain that just like the custom is, I believe strongly that we're going to have a wonderful time. So for everyone who already is on this call, I want to welcome you warmly. We appreciate your coming in as usual, and I believe, like I said earlier on, it's going to be an exciting time this afternoon as we delve into a subject matter of importance in this webinar. Characteristically of us, this is what we've been doing at Ubosele and Co., where we discuss topical issues every month, issues that has to do with real estate, that borders on real estate, so that decisions are being made, so that it helps us to deliver on the mandate that is expected of us as real estate professionals. Last month edition, which was in August, we discussed the issue of tax. And this time around, we're discussing something much more important. All the topics that we discussed so far are important topic. And I believe, again, this topic this afternoon, which I'm going to introduce the speaker to us shortly, and as well as the topic. But before then, I'd like us all to pay attention. I'd like us all to listen into the webinar. Should you have questions, you can use the chat box to ask questions. If you want to speak, we'll also give you the privilege to speak. The backend can actually promote you to become one of the panelists where you can ask a question or make a contribution. So please feel free to get your questions ready. Try to invite one or two persons to join in immediately as we start. Try to invite one or two persons so that we can just get into it quickly. Today, the topic we're going to be discussing is the importance of record keeping in real estate business. The importance of record keeping in real estate business. And the question we begin to ask ourselves, or probably what we begin to say is, what's the essence of record keeping? Why should we keep record? Of what importance it is. If I'm a one-man business, if I'm a real estate organization, or do one or two things, it's really important to keep documentation. These are questions that we're going to ask ourselves. And there's no other person who can do justice to this other than one of our very own by name, Mojisola Ogunkoya. Mojisola Ogunkoya is the head of accounting at Ubosele and Co. And I want to also say that she's had over 16 years experience, which spread across manufacturing, banking, and real estate, as well as oil and gas. And so she holds a higher national diploma certificate in accountancy, and she's also a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. She's also a certified intelligence coach, a grief support specialist, and a member of various other professionals body in Nigeria. And so one other thing I also need to say about Moji is also an author. She's authored a book, and I believe strongly that she's well prepared and ready to discuss this subject matter with us. Without further ado, I'd like to bring Mojisola Ogunkoya on board so that she can take us through this topic. While she's having this discussion, get your pen and paper. Any question you have, please do put them on the chat box. If you want to make comments, please feel free to also use the raise hand button, and we invite you at the appropriate time. Mojisola Ogunkoya, welcome to this presentation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sanjo Fowley, for that introduction. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I believe that your time is not going to be wasted, and we're going to have an interactive session. So please permit me to share my slide in a moment. Okay, so today, as it has been said, we are looking at the importance of record keeping in real estate business. So just like the part of the body, every part of the body is actually significant. So when we talk about real estate, it's not just about getting the client, looking for the client and, running after the money. So there are also other critical things that we need to put into consideration. And so one of them is what we are discussing today, the importance of record keeping. So just a moment. So I'll go into my introduction. Sorry, just a moment. Um, Stop sharing. So sorry for that. I was just trying to put my slide in order. So like I said, we're talking about the importance of record keeping in real estate. And I earlier said that every part of our body is very, very important. And so real estate is not just about looking for money, looking for clients. And so in my introduction, I said that today many companies either underestimate the importance of record keeping and management or view the process as a matter of convenience. Like it's not something that is necessary. Let me just get the client and move on. But it's not like that. And yet, record management programs are vital for any office as they offer a number of advantages akin to productivity and cost saving. What's more, a good record management system helps ensure compliance and quick access to most reference files for planning and decision making. You know, the key thing is decision making is something that we do every day. Right now, as many of us that are connected to this webinar, you are here as a result of decision. You decided to be here. You can be elsewhere. So meaning that issue of keeping record is a matter that you will need because we have to plan. Either you're planning internally for your staff or for your organization or how to move forward, or you are planning as to who you want to serve, what client, what category of clients you want to really serve. And so record keeping is actually very important for decision making purposes. And so let's go to the next slide. So let's have the extract. The first one said, if it is not documented, it does not exist. As long as information is retained in someone's head, it is vulnerable to loss. So what I mean in this quote by Louis Fry is that if you have an information, it's possible for you to remember that you had a meeting. It's even possible for you to remember the dates. It's possible for you to remember the location. It's possible for you to even remember how many people were in attendance. But you know, remembering everything that transpired that has not been documented might be difficult. And you know, looking at this extract, it reminded me of a situation that happened. A young man, a friend of mine actually, but a distant friend. You know, I remember when we were out of school, everybody wanted to work in the bank. You know, you felt that you have what it takes to work in the bank. So this young man he got to work with CBN, you know, what it means to have a job with CBN. But unfortunately, they went for a particular business. And the business for CBN was to destroy mutilated naira, you know, those old nairas. So when the process of destroying it, they now saw that instead of a bag of naira, it was now a bag of newspaper. So, but he was a young person, someone who just got work into CBN. So he knows that something went wrong, but he couldn't even document it. He couldn't know as at that point what implication he had on his own career. He just started working for like maybe 2 or 3 years. And you know, to cut the long story short, at the end of the day, they finished the operation. He went back to his own branch. And some days after that, it became an issue. It became a legal issue, but there was no documentation. It doesn't even happen. And just for this singular reason, he went to jail for like 4 years, and that has affected his life, affected his career. He knows that something went wrong. He knows the people that were there, but there was no documentation, there was no proof. And you know, in law, we say something, we say justice is blind. And one of the interpretations for that is we work on evidence. So if you don't have evidence to prove, so one of the reasons why you even need to keep record is for evidence, because you don't know what's happened. And I was reading something sometimes, and someone said that as real estate professional, that we should always prepare for the worst. No one pray for the worst, but the truth is that the worst happened. So the next one talks about talking is the natural way to do business, and talk generates ideas. But writing is great for keeping records and putting down details. So it's not just about talking. It's not just about bringing the ideas. It's not just about meeting a client. It's not just about having that meeting. But do you have process to keep details of what has transpired? That was from Bonnie Pixon. And so when you go to Steve Mann said, what I argue is that if I am going to be held accountable for my action, then I should be allowed to record my actions. So we know that as a real estate professional, what we actually sell is information, and we are also, professional agents. Like, we represent a principal, we represent clients. Sometimes we report to even tenants and so on. So every of our action counts, and so it's not going to be a bad thing to see to it that we put record into it. So what is definition of record? Records are information created, received, and maintained as evidence. Just like I said, the law is blind without evidence. I was listening to radio recently, and I know that most of us are familiar with the political, going to court and so on. And they were talking about a particular state. In that particular state, they had said that it was a particular party that won the election, and after going to the court, it became another one. So they were now arguing on radio to say that this other party, this new party that now maybe won the election at the end of the day, because they were able to go through that legal process because they had evidences of what went wrong in the other party, but the other party does not have evidence. And even when we even look at the presidential proceeding, if you listen to part of it, you find out that they will tell you that this evidence is not does not count, or there are no evidences to support your prayers and so on. So what I'm trying to say here, that record is very important, and that's why I say records are information created, received, and maintained. So maintenance is very key, as evidenced by an organization or a person in pursuit of transaction, legal action, or tax purposes. Tax people can just walk into your office and decide that they want to open your book, they want to see something, or they might just write a bill and say, you are owing us 200 million, come and defend it. So if you don't have trace of what has transpired to say, I'm owing you 100 million, I've not even done a transaction that is not 200 million. So you must have records. So record is very, very important. Definition of record keeping. Record management is systematic control of all records from their creation or received through their processing, distributing, organizing, storage, and retrieval to the ultimate disposition. So it's not just about keeping record. In keeping record, we have to be intentional. Why am I keeping this record? There must be a why. Orderly and disciplined practice of storing business record, meaning that it has to be orderly. If you are going to keep a record, maybe you are putting some file, there should be numbers to it. You don't just say, this is file. When I need it, I can get it. No. If I'm looking for file, maybe 200, where will I get it? There should be a session that I will go to, and that will save my time and save the stress and save us money, even as an organization. There must be a disciplined practice. It must be intentional of storing business record. It ranges from just simple, millennial folders to complex online. The world has become digital. So depending on what works, but online electronic filing is also very, very important. And you need to update it. You need to update your file. For instance, what do I mean by that? Let's assume that you have done evaluation work, for instance, for a particular client, and you are doing evaluation. You don't go leaving the first file and just assume this is let me open another file. There's no, you can't even, you need to keep that record in a way that you can connect from initial, valuation to a evaluation. So record keeping is an investment worth making. Either you are going to still continue to do it manually. If you are going to continue to do it manually, you need people. to invest. So as professional, you know that you need people that work. You need to create an information department, if I can say that, that keep your information. Because if something happen, like I said, someone said, as real estate professional, always prepare for the worst. But we pray that the worst don't happen. So note, record keeping is an investment that your organization should make. So what is the purpose of record keeping management? So we have different purposes to control the creation and growth of records. Like I said before, that if you have done a valuation job before, you are doing a evaluation, do you have a connection? Of course, yes. If you have served a particular tenant before and you want to serve them again, do you have a connection? Do you have the previous file? Or you have served a tenant that maybe relocated to another state or another country and is coming back? Do you have the initial transaction that transpired to reduce operational costs? If you have file and you're opening another file, whereas you're supposed to use one, you're already spending more than what you're supposed to spend. To improve efficiency and productivity, to stimulate new record management technology, to ensure regulatory compliance. Like I said, maybe you have reason to, maybe legal issues, you need evidence, the law or justice is blind, maybe for tax purposes, maybe for other things, you want to get work from government. What are the information that you have to minimize litigation risk, to safeguard vital information? There are information that when you don't have it, or when you have it and you mishandle it, to get it might take you time, it might be stressful, it might take you money, and sometimes you might not even get it in the same way. So the purpose of record management can never be overemphasized, to support better management decision. Like I said before, we are here as a result of a decision. So as organization, you make decision every day. You might even be making decision internally. Do I need to improve or increase my staff salary? Do you have data to prove that you have capacity to do that? Do I need to leave this particular rental building and then have an head office somewhere built around Lagos or somewhere? You need data to really determine if you have capacity for that. So it's very important. Type of records we have here: vital records. The record that you will need be within 24 hours if something go wrong. Like I said, we don't pray that something go wrong. In my office recently, but during the fuel scarcity, we have some other tenants that we share the building with. And we now find out that whenever we come to the office, we begin to smell fuel everywhere. It wasn't us. We were not bringing fuel into the building, but we were concerned because we know that if there's a fire incident, it's going to affect us. So we kind of try to go and check what is happening. Is there any reason why you have to bring your fuel upstairs and you cannot put it in the generator house? We weren't the one buying the fuel, but we were concerned about what was going on in our. In fact, there was a time I have to tell them that, please, we have over 30 years investments in this building. So please, we are concerned. What do I mean? So if we have our record destroyed, maybe by natural disaster, maybe by fire, we don't pray for that. But sometimes it happens. Do we have what we call a rollback plan or a plan B? And I remember a story when the 9/11 happened. We have so many offices on that building, but there are offices that did not actually suffer a loss. There are offices that, although they suffered a loss, but they were able to continue in operation because they have a kind of plan B. They have a backup plan that if there is a fire incident or if something happens, our office can just continue without being affected majorly. So what I'm trying to say is that there are some records that are actually vital as real estate business, record that has to do with your function and mission of your organization. Getting them back might take you sometimes, it might be stressful, and maybe you will have lost money even before you get them. So where are you keeping them? How are you keeping them? For what purpose are you keeping them? Essential for continuous operation or reconstruction of any organization, necessary to protect and ensure the rights and interests of client, employees, and other stakeholders of your organization. So what I will say at this point is that as real estate professionals, we must not be like the typical Nigerians. The typical Nigerian will say, no, God will take control. I know how to do insurance. God is my insurance. I don't want to go to the hospital. Holy Spirit is my hospital. So, but in that case, I am not against their belief. But what I'm saying is that when it comes to your record keeping, you don't have to leave it like that. You don't have to say, no, God is the protection of my document. I've been doing this business for 30 years and we have not had fire incident. In fact, this made me to remember a particular scenario. So I wanted to enroll my child in a particular school. And so I was asking them about where is your fire extinguisher and so on. And the response was, we have been in this business for over 7 years and we've never had a fire incident. So as funny as it may be, but the important thing is that the fact that you have been in a business maybe for 10 years and you have never had a fire incident does not guarantee that fire incident cannot happen, or that a disaster cannot happen, or that war cannot even happen. So we need to make our record up to date in case we have issues. And we also have those that are essential. We have the vital and the essential. The essential are maybe the one you will need within 74 or 72 hours after something happened. It might be difficult, you might be able to get them back, but it might be difficult to replace. These are records which can be easily replaced. The time and cost of reproducing or accessing this record will be minimal because of readily available, but it will still be stressful. So it's better to, when there's a saying that when you don't plan, or when you don't have any plan, maybe you're planning to fail, you understand? So we need to have a plan. The question to us is, do you have a rollback plan? If anything happens to your documents, if anything happens to your office, do you have a rollback plan? Do you have a place where all your documents are kind of that you kept them, that in case if anything happened to this, I can just move on with life? A rollback plan is your safety net in event of something going wrong. Goes wrong with a system upgrade or software development or a disaster happening. So just ask yourself, you don't need to answer that question. As an individual or even an organization, now we are focusing on organization, do you have a rollback plan? And also under records, we have some records that we might say that are non-essential. So record that, so that you don't just say, this I should keep every record. You need to be intentional. Is this record vital? Is this record is essential? Will it help with if I have legal issues? Will it help if I have issues with FIRS? Or will it help if I have issues with EFCC? So you need to think about that. Advantages of keeping records safe. It provides accurate records of agency contact with clients and aid in continuity of client management and other operational essentials, short-term and time limited. When you have records in place, you can keep the record of clients. You can even know how many. If someone asks you, since you have been in business, how many clients have you met? It's not just I'm going to assume, it's like I've met, it's like they are this, or it's like, no, you can just say it within, without thinking and say that, yes, we've been in business for 10 years, we have been able to serve so bank, so clients, and these are the categories of clients. You're able to do that because you have records in place. It aids job memory, as over time, it can be difficult to recall specific of each transaction or meeting. Like I said from the beginning, it is easy to know that you had a meeting on a particular date. It is even easy to know the location. It is even easy to even remember people that, okay, these are the people that were present, but it might become difficult to remember all the details. Maybe someone said something that was vital and you did not put it down, and maybe that is what you need. Learn credibility, particularly if one is called to give evidence of a particular fact or matter. Are we clients or other stakeholders? Clients, okay, what I even want to say at this point is that before someone becomes your client, They are first of all human beings. And now when you talk about the human being, some human being can decide to be anything at any point in time. And I also want to say at this point that perfection is divine. That means you can't expect that everybody is going to be perfect. And so let me even tell you a story around this. You know, personally, I have an experience. Like when they were introducing me, they said I've had like 16 or 15 years experience working as an accountant, meaning that I've actually worked in like 4 organizations. So in one of the organizations, I have a situation where a colleague of mine has said that I have told him or her that we should be involved in crime or in fraud. Between me and you, read my list. I know that this claim is just a mere accusation. And when the person wants to do that, I think it's just best known, just like I said, that human being will be human being. But for me, personally, I know that when I heard that thing, the first thing I would say normally, is Jesus, like personally. But I know that along the line, I begin to ask that please ask the person to bring out evidence because the law is blind. Let's even assume that it was true. If this person does not have a record of where I said it, or how maybe it was a text message, maybe it was an email, this person does not have a case. So, without evidence, the law is blind. Why I'm emphasizing it is that keeping your record for an evidence is so key because your clients can become anything tomorrow. Your clients can decide to be something else that you don't expect. So help you to find and share the information you need. Result in information that can be trusted. If it's well organized, it can be trusted. Help you to make sound decisions. I've talked about decisions before. Protect your organization from risk. Doing business is risk. Life itself is a risk. So help you meet your responsibility for maybe open government. Maybe you have opportunity to want to work with government. So just because you have information in place, keep good to keep record keeping enable information to be reused. So what example do I even want to give? Let's say you have worked with an organization, maybe a particular bank, and you have documented all the process, all the meetings, everything that transpired. And so another bank is inviting you. Bank is a bank, you understand? Maybe they might be unique in the way they operate, but they have so many similarities. You can go back and see what happened. How were we able to, get this process done? What and that can guide the new process. So information can actually be reused. Help to build a better business system. Good records support long-term accountability and sustainability. Like you are able to know how much and it does it even worth it for you to continue to do this business. Can it sustain you? Can you have more employees? Can you have other branches? Document to keep in real estate transactions. So now we are bringing it home. So I assume that we are real estate professionals. So and we want to learn. Either you are a real estate professional, either you are just interested in the topic of record keeping. I am saying that even personally as a person, keeping record is very, very key. And recently I was watching a movie, and it was a Yoruba movie recently, very recent. So, and I was even preparing for this. I was like, oh, yes, this is very relevant. And so I think the film was called The Debtor. I'm not going to go into the details of the film, the movie, but what actually happened was a situation between the driver and his boss, and the boss is a senator in that movie. I know senators, that big person who has money to buy everything. And something happened, and this senator promised this driver that please just go to jail and replace my children. The children has raped a particular young lady who died. So go to jail and I will pay you 10 million for it. And this young man went to jail for maybe the understanding between him and the boss. The hope that, oh, even if I'm in jail, my relative can enjoy, my family can enjoy the money. And so the senator, to cut the long story short, killed this man in jail because he had money to do that. But before the man died, he had recording of where the man said, "This is our agreement. This is how much I'm going to pay you for it." After a long time that the man had died, because he had left this information with one of the warders, the son was able to get a kind of second or a kind of justice because this evidence was available. So what I'm trying to say is that either you're a real estate person, either you're a banker, either you're an accountant, no matter the business you have, every business have a risk. Even as individual, every life has its own risk. But we just always pray that we don't get involved in such. So document to keep in real estate transaction. Property managers must keep copies of all records and professional real estate activities concluded by them or on behalf of their client for at least 10 or 12 years. So this is not kind of one size fits all. Some countries have their own timing. Some will tell you keep documents for like 4 years, 5 years. Some countries will even say that keep it after 12 years. So after 12 years, you can just leave it. If one has not come to check up on you for any reason or giving you a legal and have a case with you for after 12 years, you are just free to just destroy the information. But I want to say that at this moment, I am not giving you a timeline that after 12 years destroyed. Because we've had a situation in my organization that we were no longer even managing a particular property. This property has been handed over to the children of the owners, so to say. And so these people were not having issue with tenants and old tenants on rent payment and so on. After so many years that we have let go of the property, but just last year, they came back seeking for information to help them go to court against this tenant, old tenant who has refused to leave their property and who is not ready to pay the new rates. You can imagine if we just say, "Oh, we have handed over the property. It's no longer our business," and we just destroy the evidences or the information we have. Look at how it will have ended. So it's very important. I can tell you so many stories, long transactions. I remember also in my organization that there was a time that we did evaluation for a well-respected person who had paid us with check in his name. And so I think he now began to have problem with the bank and maybe it was going to be an issue. And he denied us that he has never met our organization before. He did not even know us. Whereas we did valuation for him. We were one that carried out this valuation. But one of the saving grace was we had information, that has to do with this. Especially, he had used his check with his name. So how come we had his check and his name, a photocopy of his check and his name if we have never met? So that's why I said before your client became a client, they are first of all human being and profession is divine. So let's go into our sales transaction. What are those? This is not like one size fits all. You can be more than this depending on your own confidence or what your heart can carry. So on other sales transaction, we have the instruction letter and the acceptance. I know that instruction can come either way. Maybe as one representing the principal, you have been told to sell a particular property. You can, try to, oh, sorry, I think I'm mixing it up. So instruction and acceptance, meaning that your principal has given you an instruction to sell. Please let me sell this particular land or this particular building. And acceptance meaning I accept to sell in that. So it's very key. Offer an acceptance letter to the transaction. Yes, this offer is interesting. So this offer is what I wanted to explain. Offer can be either way. You can decide to offer now that you now have an instruction to sell a particular property or land. You can offer it to someone you feel that has the capacity to pay, and is trustworthy. It's not just about capacity to pay. And the person can accept as, okay, I accept to do this deal. Or it might be either way. Someone have an information that you are the one in control of this particular. They can give you an offer and say, please, I'm offering to buy this. So you should also have your receipt of purchase or receipt of sales either way. If you are buying, it may be if you are buying And if it's that you're selling, you have to give them evidence of, okay, I received money from you, and this is it. And the fear of EFCC is the beginning of wisdom. So you need to know your customer. The KYC form is very, very important. Get to know where they work, where they live, what kind of work they do, where is the money coming from. I know that sometimes all this cannot be perfect, but the law has to see that you have done your best. Copies of title to the documents and copies of transfer documents and vital file notes. There are some that might not come, like maybe your meetings with them, you have minutes of meeting, other important notes that that can go with this transaction. And also we have for the letting, we have the instruction and acceptance, instruction from a landlord to say that please let out my property, and you accepting to do that. Offer and acceptance, just like what we explained for sales, maybe for tenants who are interested, and your KYC. Remember, the fear of EFCC is the beginning of wisdom. That is another second thing I wanted to go with other things. And so we also have the tenancy agreement. This tenancy agreement is very key. And in this tenancy agreement, we have the laid down plan as to what is the responsibility of the tenant and the landlord, what and other information. But key things, now that you're in my house, what's my responsibility as the landlord? Am I responsible for the common area? Am I responsible for the sockaway? And the list just go on and on and on. And so we also have other vital notes and comments, meetings, mail, minutes of WhatsApp. WhatsApp is common now, and there's arguments about it. If a WhatsApp communication is really tenable in the court of law, I am not yet a lawyer, so I may not be able to defend that. But all I know is that we need to put vital information and notes in our files. We also have for the property management, instruction letter from your landlord, acceptance of this instruction, to manage the property. And we also have the tenancy acquittance form, which is your know your customer, the fear of EFCC. And the tenancy agreement too is also key. I've explained that. And we also have other letters like renewal letter, routine inspection. You need to carry out routine so that you can maintain that property. And you also have maybe pictures of the building when you begin to manage the property. That maybe comes under the routine inspection, or before you start to do routine inspection, at least the initial thing you should have maybe the picture of how the building look like. What if the landlord comes tomorrow and says, no, this is not how my building look like? You have changed the building, maybe you have refused it. Anything can happen, expect the worst. So that will guide us to really be able to put things into perspective. And we also have what we call the disbursement letter. Now that you are a property manager, you have collected rent on behalf of the landlord. You need to disburse back. You need to give the money back to the landlord. So as you are paying, you need to write letter to say so rent has been collected from so group of people or from this particular tenant, and this rent is covering from maybe January to December of so year, and this is the amount, and this is my own fee deducted, and so on. It depends on how you do your own, but something like a disbursement letter is don't just assume that, oh, maybe the landlord has seen the money. The landlord know now that this money is coming from, so we just need to be guided. And with other files, vital files, notes, and comments. Now coming to valuation, instruction letters and emails from the person who have instructed, maybe from the bank or the owner of the property, to say, go and carry out a valuation from my property. This is very key. There are some buildings that you will go to, even with instruction letter. It takes the grace of God for you to be able to have access into going to the building to do valuation. So instruction letter is very, very key. Just if a policeman asks you, where's your ID card? You are giving instruction to this property. So it's very key. And also title to the document. Your inspection worksheet can either be manual or maybe electronic. We also have the invoices of the plant and machinery. If you are doing asset valuation, your asset register, copy of valuation report, the report that you have done. Where have you kept a copy even after you have submitted? Because anything can happen. Acknowledged copy of the report itself that you have given the report to. to the owner or the person who have assigned you to do the job. And fee notes, like fee note is like, okay, this is what I'm going to collect. This is my fee from the according to maybe negotiated or professional fees. And so it's important that we have all these documents and more. So now we go to other records that are very important. We have talked about our core professional area of valuation, and we see that the list go on and on. And so this is another like the I don't want to use the most important record. It's also another important record. Your financial record is important. Your financial record helps you to be able to report well to your principal. Your financial record aids you that when your principal call you, in fact, there are sometimes that someone might give you a property to manage for some reason they don't even care. Maybe they have abundance of property, so the one they give you is maybe it's not even the most important one, if I can use that word. Or maybe they are so busy that they don't even have time to know. There are people that are so rich that they don't even have time to know how much is this. They just trusted you, or they are able to trust you that anything you deliver is what it is. The fact that it's like that does not mean that you should not keep record, because things can change. This man that does not have time today can have time tomorrow and say, okay, after 10 years of servicing me or taking care of my property, can you just give me a report? You are not running up and down. You are not able to really know, oh, this is what I know I paid money. Who paid this money? You can't remember. You can't go to the principal or the owner of the property to say, this is a long time. So how will they look at you? So your financial record is very key. Keeping quality financial record is essential for the success and sustainability of any business. Quality financial records provide a comprehensive view of the company's financial performance. You really even need to know, am I performing? The fact that you have a big office, or the fact that you are serving a big organization sometimes does not mean that you're actually performing, but your record will show. You might have a lot of inflow, but if you don't know that, you might not know if you don't keep proper record that your outflow is more than your inflow, that you're spending money. And I can give you an example. I know an organization. I didn't work in that organization, but I know someone. So I was kind of close to this organization. It was an oil and gas. So they were making money, but they were also spending. They were spending money. Today, they are no longer a business. And they were making a lot of money, but they were overspending. They didn't keep proper records. And they were also doing some businesses that relate to loans from bank and so on. But they are just seeing money. They feel that, oh, we can enjoy. Thank God it's Friday. Thank God it's Wednesday and so on. I am not saying that it's wrong to do thank God it's Friday. In fact, it's very key for an organization to do that, because everything is not about work, but you also need to be intentional and know that, do I have capacity? So if you see a company, hey, always doing thank God it's Friday, always doing thank God it's Wednesday, and they're carrying their staff to somewhere to enjoy themselves, to wine and dine, do you have the capacity? You need to check your record to know if you have that capacity, which is necessary for informed decision. That's what I've explained. And ensuring compliance with legal and regulatory requirements. You need to be responsible. When I was in school, my tax lecturer used to say that no one wants to pay tax. He said, even me as a tax lecturer, I don't want to pay tax. That if the government don't run after us, we will not want to pay tax. And as Nigerians, if I might say that sometimes we don't see, not that we don't want to pay, but we don't see a reason why we should even pay the tax. But if you have record, and that's why tax people can come and say you are owing us 10 million. Whereas, have you even done a transaction of 10 million in the last how many years? So you need to check, you need to keep your record. By keeping accurate financial record, you can manage your business financial health. You can know if your business is actually sick. You can know. Don't be deceived. There's some organization you see, they are big outside. In fact, maybe they are using big cars, but they may not be healthy. They might be living on loans. So, but when you keep records, you are able to know if we are really healthy or we're sick, financially. And, And I want to also put it straight that it's not bad that a business find out that they are financially not healthy. But because you have that information, you begin to look at how do we come out of this. But if you don't have the information, you just see that today you are open and tomorrow the person is closed down because you don't have informed information and record in place. And to make informed decision about the future investment, I think I've said that before, expansion or cutting measure. One of my bosses used to say that if we are not making money, let's look at areas that we can cut costs. We need to be intentional about, let's look at areas that we can. So, but if you don't have record, how do you know that you're spending more on diesel? How do you know that, okay, maybe instead of shutting down your lights by 5 p.m., maybe you should just shut down by 4 p.m. People are done with their work, let them relax and go so that it's safe for. Or how do you know that instead of owning your gen at 6 a.m., let's wait till 8 a.m. when people are really ready to work? You can do that because you have record in place. 6 ways businesses can use financial record. And when I say businesses, including real estate business, because what we are doing too is business. Monitor the progress of your business. Are you progressing? Are you really making it, or you are just managing? How long have you been in business? What is the strength of your income and so on? Prepare your financial statement. You need this statement even sometimes to be able to get work and so on. Budgeting and forecasting for the future. Identify the source of your receipt. Where is this money coming from? If I'm doing valuation, I'm doing it, and I'm doing sales, is it time for me to drop one because it's not really bringing in? But if you don't have record, how do you know? Is it time for me to improve on my management skill? If you don't have record, how do you know? So you need to keep track of deductible expenses, maintain business asset list, prepare your tax return. Nobody wants to pay tax, but the government will always run. And see, we even need to be responsible. I don't want to use the word nobody wants to pay tax. As professional, as real estate, we must pay our tax. And so how do we do this? We need to have record, because tax people can come and tell you that they want to see your record in the last 10 years. So what if you don't have? And you have started doing business for like 20 years. Record keeping tools. We have the paper, the files. So in this place, I'm not going to say that this is what you should use, but what I will say is that what works for you. What is important is that a record is available. A record is made clear. And a record is used for its purpose, either for you to make valid decision concerning your organization, or decision of who to serve, or maybe legal requirement to support and serve as evidences, or maybe for task purpose. You could also use your computer to store your records, cloud computing. I was discussing with someone, a friend. Is it a friend? Yes, a friend of mine. And it was like, in those days, banks, what they have is like they have an head office. They have another, like something that looks like head office in another state, a state close by that. In case if something happened to our head office, our key staff can just immediately start. But say for now, nothing like that actually. You don't get those records physically. It's everything is now on cloud. So, and also accounting record is also a tool to really, put it in figures. And your file hosting too, you can also do that. The basic principle of record management is verification, classification, reasonable cost, and so on. However, while storing paper document is still a common approach to record management, it's also a costly and time-consuming method that's growing more and more. So what I'm trying to talk about here is that, just like I said, that a friend of mine said, in those days we have physical, we keep those records physical, but now it's now cloud. So what he's telling us is that everything is digital, that we are, as professionals, real estate professional, you can also take advantage. And remember, I told us that when you talk about your record keeping, it's an investment that is worth making. It might be like, it's expensive, or it might be like, what result are we getting from it? But you don't know that a day will come that you will need this document. In fact, I was reading something online. I forgot the name of the person, but I think he's also one of these people that he has a property firm or something. And he was saying that He was just packing loads, or he was relocating and saw a document, a vital document he has been looking for. He encouraged us as real estate professionals that we should always keep record, because a day will come that we might need it. What happens if you don't keep record? So I think I begin to round up. Office record provide history, and it helps for decision making. I think I've even really talked about all these points. So conclusion, documentation of everything is a must. We are all human, and divine is, or perfection is God, is divine, and deal with so many people daily. It is one thing to remember a situation, but most of the time it's hard to remember details of conversation, and that may prove detrimental. In real estate business, there are so many situations where things can, take a turn for the worst. Even with the best laid down plan, as professionals, we need to ensure we represent our client. Remember that we are representing someone, we are representing our principal to the best of our ability. And one of the ways to do this is to have documentation and proof to back, our action. Remember one of the quotes that said, if you are going to be accountable for your action, then you should be allowed to document. In the real estate industry, proper record keeping helps to deliver mandates of our client, provide data essential for property management, maintain and serve as evidence for legal and tax purposes, making our work easier. So it's important. Proper documentation is everything. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so very much, Moji. That was handful, and that was very exciting. A whole listening to you, at some point, I was just thinking in my head, is this person speaking an accountant or an estate surveyor? Because when I was just listening to that's on a lighter note, it just go to show how far this issue and this subject matter that we're talking about. Thank you once again for that robust enlightenment on the importance of record keeping in real estate business. And I strongly want to believe that for everyone who is on this call up to this moment, must have gleaned one or two lessons, have gleaned quite a whole lot. And okay, before I'm going to, a few things, we'll be wrapping up. If you have questions, if you want us to promote you to speak for just, we can take 2, 3, or 4 comments from people. You may want to raise your hand. If you raise your hand, I could get the back end to bring you on board. So you just make 1 or 2 comments if you think that there are things that we can actually learn from you, or that you want to also, and also if you also want to ask questions, you're also free to ask questions, so please feel free to do that, and do that quickly, so that we can know the people we can bring up to ask their questions and all that. All right, so let me go back to the conversation. Listening to about 3 stories that you reeled out. You talked about the story of a particular friend who worked with the CBN, but lack of experience, so to say, led him to spend time in jail, lost his job, and it shows how the need to keep evidence, how important the issue of evidence is. You also talked about an analogy of what happened in our organization, where we've handed the property for so many years and they had to come back, and because that documents and records were there, it was easy to give. And what that suggests to us is immediately to say, those clients, for whatever reason, they have the properties because maybe their parents are no more alive. It's just to say whoever it is that handled their parents or their father's property did a good job. That's what it means and all that. Okay, so the last thing I want to say before I ask you 1 or 2 questions and then go back to the people, if you have questions, is, listening to you also made me realize, not just made me realize, but it brings to fore the word, or what people say, that it's not just about doing the job. The process of doing the job does matter. How you get the job done matters, and I think that's why you're able to so it means that as a valuation surveyor, the valuation file does not just start and end with you. it starts with you, it ends in so many places in the organization. Because for you, for example, if you're going to be working on the file, you're going to be doing certain things. If certain things are not in the file, I speak to the procedures that we have in Obosele & Co. because these procedures are very, very important, and they're very, very key. And so very, very important. So Moji, let me before, we're still hoping that people ask questions, raise their hand. I'm trying to also look at that along the people we have on board. So please feel free, like I said, you can raise your hand. We can promote you to one of the panelists so you can ask your question. Moji, I'm going to ask you this question. When you started, you talked about creating, receiving, and maintaining records. So you talked about record being the ability to create it, then also receive and maintain. How would you, in terms of retrieving record, what would you suggest, or how much of importance? Because I asked this question just because I want to bring to further. It's not just only important having those records. The ability to retrieve those records is very, very important. Now, I want you to speak to the importance and the accessibility or the easy way to retrieve records from the records that you do have. I don't know, maybe you get that question. Do you want to speak to that? I have one or two more questions, then we'll go to the people to see. I've seen one question already here, but again, let's hear you talk to that. Moji.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Okay. All right, if I hear that question you talked about how easy it is to retrieve records, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it all depends and starts with us. If we are able to keep proper record, then retrieving it becomes easy. So at a point I talked about, if you are going to, let's assume you are even using the old file, the linear files. Now, where you are keeping them, have you labeled them? Maybe you have files running to thousands. Do you label them that, oh, this is file 1, file 2, file this? And maybe when you have those files, you should also have it on your computer that, oh, file 1 is dealing with let's say Mr. Jide, for instance, and file 2 has to do with Olamiran and Co. and so on. So when you want to retrieve a file, you can then go to your system. Even if you have forgotten the number, you can go to your system and say, oh, file, or maybe you can control find Mr. Olaniran or Mr. Jide. I know that immediately you will have access to, oh, it's file 1 and it's file 2. Because it is possible that maybe the last time you work for a particular client is about 5 years. And as a human being, you've been dealing, I have a situation whereby sometimes you go to the hospital, you have met a particular doctor. And when you get there, they start from the beginning, like, they'll tell you, please, I miss so many people. You can't blame them. So what I'm trying to say there is that how it's going to be easy is that from the beginning, you are intentional. From the beginning, you tag it. Even if you are going to use the system or you are using the manual approach, make sure that it's well tagged. So what I was trying to explain is that, let's say, for instance, you use the manual approach where you have the cabinets and you have the file, enable to say, okay, this cabinet contains from file 1 to 500. Or, in cabinets, we have like 3 drawers or 4 drawers. This particular 4th drawer maybe is, when you get there, is file 1 to 20. You understand? And so let's assume now you are looking for file 20. You don't even know what file number, but you know the name. You can go to your system and say, Mr. Adeniran. As far as maybe it's only one Adeniran you have, even if you have more than one, it will bring out all the Adenirans, and you are from there, you know the particular file that you are looking for. So the best thing to do it is that, number one, you must know your why, and you must also be intentional from the beginning. Because if you are ready, it's just like an individual. If you live in a house and it's well structured, even if you are sleeping, somebody wake you up, you know where your pillow is, you know where your pot is. But if everything is scattered, you can just say, see, when you get there, you just check, you will see it. So I think it begins with us and, being specific and being intentional.
Thank you very much. So, it's fine. Please, there's somebody who raised his hand on the group. Please, I want the back end to promote him or her to the panelists, and I'm going to call the person shortly. I also have 2 questions already. We're going to take all of them. Please, the back end, Angela, please, can you move the person will raise his hand, move him to panelists, and at the appropriate time, I'm going to ask the person to unmute himself and speak. I already have 3 questions also here. Muji, I'm also going to ask you one more question. The other question I'm going to ask you, which is also still based on retrieval, especially for structured organization, don't you think, because I saw the things you reeled out, financial this and all of that, as an estate professional, you want to get your things done immediately, you want to reach out, you want to sort out your clients immediately. Maybe that's the reason why you have all these portfolio surveyors. They just, on their table, they finish everything, everybody moves on without work. So don't you think the issue, to what extent do you think the issue of administrative bottlenecks, I mean, bureaucracy, I mean, having to go through, because when I see you mention all of these things look much. And for me, it makes it look as if retrieval, or makes it as if being effective can be somehow. I mean, I ask this question for the sake of people who are all listening. What do you want to say to that?
Okay, so if I understand your question, right? What I will first of all say is that as professional, real estate professional, you know, one of the things I said from the beginning is that the part of the body, every part of the body is important. So if you have a real estate organization or a real estate business, ensure that you focus on every department. Ensure that you know that your core, or let me say your professional staff, like the valuers, the people that are going to do other professional work, are very important. So as much as other staff, other departments, you need to have record department. Like I said, if you have record department, if you have people who are responsible to this, it becomes simple, because that is what they do every day, keeping record. So if you just come and say, I need so record, because you have someone available. And that is one of the reasons why I say that record keeping is worth investing in. And the investment I mean there is that you need to have people that do this work and that do it very well. So if that is their work, it becomes simple. It's just like asking me as an accountant to come and operate or do operation on somebody. How do I do that? But do you know that it doesn't take 15 minutes for a doctor to operate a woman and bring out a baby? Because that is his own, you understand, that is his own area, and that is what he does, like every day. It's like without thinking he can do that. So what I'm trying to say in the process is that you must invest in every department. You must ensure that you know that every department is important. Because if you look at your information center and feel that, oh, these are not professional, in fact, I don't even think I need you people, I don't need a staff here. The day you want to look for something, or the day something goes wrong, it becomes, you know, it becomes a problem. So if you invest in that area, they can begin to develop themselves. Like we said, that they can also, you know, some organizations are still paperful. What I mean by paperful is that they still keep the manual file and everywhere is filled up. But if you have people in that department, you can even have, they can, you know, they can translate from paperful to paperless. Because if you have a surveyor to come and do that, a surveyor is thinking about how I want to go after a client, how I want to go for a particular meeting, and then coming back, how do I do the filing? It becomes so cumbersome and difficult. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, that answers it. Thank you very much. I think now we need to begin. I've got 5 questions on the, and we have someone who's already. So let me allow AVAS, to unmute himself and also introduce himself. And let's take your comments and probably your question, whatever it is that you have. Let's hear you out before we go to the questions. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, rather. My name is Akinrokpo Abraham. Am I audible enough? Can we all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. I have 2 questions quickly. The first one is about client confidentiality as regards record management. And the second one is as regards record management as you know, when it comes to this age, saving record in the cloud. I want the speaker to please kind of advise us on what to do. we all know that this is the age of internet. A whole lot of record is being put there. However, in our climate, Nigeria as an Africa, majority of our issue is lack or inadequate infrastructure when it comes to this internet accessibility and availability. How do you encourage people who are engaging in rural practice? When I mean rural practice, I don't really mean villages. Even down some of our cities, the internet infrastructure is not that okay. So what will you advise us to do in keeping our record in the cloud, or in keeping our, making our record accessible to everyone on the field? What method should we adopt? That's number one. The second one is client confidentiality. This day, taking a typical real estate firm, for example, where you have so many departments, and we all know that one of the quality of all these HN high network individual is that ability for you to secure or make their identity non-disclosed or not too much open. So how do we undo it when you have agency department, sales management department, valuation, and the entire firm is maintaining a central database, what we call probably, one cloud, and everybody can easily access what is happening in agency or what is happening in valuation. So what do you suggest? How do we arrange, or how do we, make ourselves available or organize ourselves in such a way that we still maintain that client confidentiality? And how do we handle the issue of internet unavailability or inadequate in some of our cities? Thank you.
Mr. Arokpo, thank you so very much for your question. That's very, so Moji, can you take up that quickly?
Yes, thank you for that important question, Mr. Arokpo. So let me start from the second one, the issue of confidentiality. So there is no system that is perfect, So, but I think it starts from training. And I want to give I like to be practical. I want to give a practical example. Like for my organization, recently we have an employee. We employed someone into the account department. And, part of the training and one of the things that we say to her every day, like I can tell you that even as at Friday, if I'm not mistaken, she still heard this word from me, confidentiality. Confidentiality. So I think the basic thing is that, as human beings, we are not perfect. But when you employ people, you need to have a culture in place. First of all, even before you employ them, you need to have your own way of doing things. And that is why, if I give an example, if someone working in GT today decided to go to Zenith Bank will not say, oh, you are working in bank, oh yeah, come and resume. No, he or she has to go through the induction where they introduce this. Although you are a banker before, but this is how we do our own thing here. You understand? So what I'm trying to say is that you need to train your staff the importance of keeping record and importance of keeping it safe and, confidentiality. And if you listen from the beginning, I kept saying that perfection is divine, but you must make sure that you have done your own part by ensuring and telling them the implication of if an information goes out, this is what can happen. And also another thing I want to say there, and from what I've seen from my own organization, is that it's not every transaction that everybody handles. In your organization, you should have grades, you should have level of experience and level of maturity professionally. So you know that I'm dealing with this particular client, and this client must be highly treated confidential. You know who to handle it. It's not everybody. Some transaction can go on in a particular, where you have more than 100 surveyors. So will all the 100 surveyors know that you are even dealing with a particular client? They may not know. So you also have to think about that and do what works for you, because it's not one size fits all. But I think what is important is this training and continuous training, telling them the implication, try to train them that this is the implication even on your own profession if you decide to. And also the issue of confidentiality, you also need to know where it stops. It's not every client that come and say, cover me. The fear of EFCC is also the beginning of wisdom. This confidentiality that you're talking about, is it what an organization should do? You must be able to know from the transaction. Is it what can implicate your organization? If no, then you go ahead, but you have to find a way around it.
but training. There is a saying that said, if you don't train them, then don't blame them. So let me end that like that. I don't know if that serves. So on this issue of the second one, you know, there are things that you can control and things that you cannot control. You know, as even the best organization that has the best plan in place. So I was just telling someone recently that I attended a program, a summit, and so much was spent on this summit. It was an hybrid. Although I went physically, I know because I was one of the committee members, so I know that a lot of money was spent. And you know, even on the day of the program, we still had issues regarding to the internet and so on. So it's not about the investment, but it's about knowing that growth is a process, and you know, it's a journey. The journey of keeping the record keeping actually is a journey, and is a journey that you even learn from your own experience, from what has happened to you in the past. You begin to improve your process. Like in my organization, I know that before now, when someone says that maybe they take a particular apartment, and maybe they travel out and maybe left their cousin behind or this, you just still assume that, oh, but from experience, we now find out that if someone travel like that and okay, left their cousin or their brother, we are comfortable with that arrangement, but we should go back and update the record. We got to know that from experience and from what has happened. So going back to the issue of the cloud, where you have, even if you have so many people working for you, it may not be all of them that have access to that cloud. All of them, like in my organization where we have more than 100 surveyors, 100 people cannot have access to. There's limitation, and in all of these things, there is what we call permits, where the limit of where people can get to. And even when you go to bank, I give you a practical example. If you want to do some transaction, you hear the front desk talking to someone behind to override, you know, because for her or him, there is a limitation. So I think we just need to put all this structure in place, and to also know that the issue of keeping record is actually a journey. And for people who are disadvantaged, maybe internet is a journey. So for the fact that they are disadvantaged today, you know, we keep telling our government can improve tomorrow, internet can improve, but they should do what they have now and do it well. If you are still using paperful, make sure that you do it well. That what is important is that when you need those information, you are able to get it. You might not be necessarily it's from cloud or it's from where, but do you have it? The law, the judge in the court may not ask you where you get it from, but do you have it? That's the most important thing. So if you are still paperful, or if you have not been able to put your information in the cloud, don't be sad, or you are not really wrong, but we are saying there is room for improvement. But whatever you are doing now, just do it very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Moji. Mr. Kiroko, I'm sure that answers maybe a few, one or two comments to what Moji said in terms of client confidentiality. I know how important that is. Very, very key. And I think for every organization, I mean, just like us, I mean, this is something we don't take lightly. Even when you talk about EFCC and all of those stuff, I mean, one of the reasons why clients do business with you, they want to be sure that their information are actually very confidential with you. And I think that has to do with a lot of the organization. I agree with you totally, and you're very right. It's something that we must look critically into in such a way that when you are retrieving those information, you don't breach the confidentiality that you have with your client. I think based on organization and structure and the human resources management, these are things that are being handled. I know organizations, when people come in, there's a manual to say, this is the extent you can go. Even in all those other clients, there's a level, not everybody can get to a certain level in terms of even dealing with some clients. There's some clients that not everybody deals with. I mean, the nature of the clients, even if you're in management department, you're not somebody high up there is directly involved. I know that. I think those are the ways by which, these are some of the things that we do, and I'm sure that these are things that actually can also be done. I also agree with you totally when you talked about the penetration with internet facility and all that. And I think Moji answered that very well by saying the bottom line is that we're in this climb. We can always improve. Things are better now compared to what it used to be. I remember so many years ago where we used to go to the cyber cafe while I used to work in an organization. You want to send the evaluation report, do this and all of that, the internet not working and all that. But now I think it's a lot better, but it can be better than this. Even the banking institution where a lot of things happen, we have, so I totally agree with you. But like Moji rightly said, the ones that you have, how good are you doing them right now? And you must begin to scale up. And she says something very instructive when she talked about record keeping is an investment that is worth making. So it means that for organizations who are listening to us like this, you must be ready to invest heavily in infrastructure, internet infrastructure, facility, laptops, and all of those things. That they are things that will make the work better. And I agree with you totally. I don't know if that answers it before we go to the other 6 questions we need to take. But Mr. Kinrokbo, does that answer properly?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
All right.
And
All right. Thank you for.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I can see somebody else's hand is here. Okay. Moji, you have, okay, so let's just take this other person. Please unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and let's take your comments before we now go to the other questions. I'm sure in another 10, 15 minutes should be done. So the person who is promoted, unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and let's take your comments or questions. Thank you. Fab, who is Fab? Please, can you unmute yourself and introduce yourself and ask the question? Fab. Okay. All right. So I think this person is not ready for us. So would you please let's go to the question box. We have about 6 questions. I'm going to read them. Macho Inilola, thank you for dropping. Saying, in a company where there's no proper structure, what can someone do as a facility manager in terms of record keeping? For instance, so many payments are being made without the knowledge of the in-house facility manager. Moji, do you want to answer that from Matthew Inilola?
Okay, so what I want to first of all say is that the question even answered itself, like organization where there is no structure. So what you need to do is to put structure to beginning. And also I'm trying to read the mind of the person, saying that maybe when money comes in and the manager does not know. So I'm thinking in direction that maybe where we have one-man business and some money has to go directly to the owner. I'm just trying to create a scenario. I think what happened is just to create structure, and sometimes this kind of thing you can't fight it. You can only educate and always. And there's something that a senior friend told me one time is that if you want to really create a difference in your organization, do more of writing than talking. Like put it in black and white and say, this is what I feel that is important for us to do to improve and so on. You might not achieve it just like immediately, but even if you are no longer there or if something goes wrong, they will know that, Mr. B or Mr. A has said that, oh, this and this has to be done. And also, sometimes people don't even know the implication of what they are doing. It doesn't matter how highly placed and maybe the level of experience or their exposure. So sometimes we need to educate them. And I would like to say that it's not about what we say sometimes, but how we say it. So we also need to know how to put our point clear to say, oh, this and this is not right, and this is it. I know that sometimes my organization, sometimes I will say that, oh, we need to employ somebody, not for personal reason or for any reason, but for the work. You must give a reason why you need something. And so you might not get it immediately, but with time, it begins to create a difference. So I don't really know what particular scenario, but the key thing is that if there is no structure, you have to put a structure. And what I would say is that, do you have an accountant or someone, do you understand? Because as a professional, a real estate professional, you have so many things you are thinking about. You have a meeting you are thinking about. You have how to catch up. And some of these things might not even be deliberate, because when you're running after clients, the meeting to meet up and so on, you might even forget that someone said I paid money. But you have a stable department as account department, which is key. And I even want to advise at this point, even if you are doing a startup, look for someone to be an accountant or account representative. It might not be someone who is professional, it might be IT, but someone who knows how to do the debit and the credit for you. That will help. And before you know it, you might think it's expensive, but it's cheaper than losing your money and you are not able to account for it. I don't know if that serves.
Yeah, thank you, Moji. Matthew Lola, I think I know. I mean, thank you for that question. Very, very good. I think Moji said something, and you talked about which is it? Just educate. You know, there are things that you probably will not. You talked about the challenge you have in the organization. What I think you could do is just keep talking about it. At some point, it may be difficult, and rightfully so, just like you said. But just keep educating. I mean, keep raising those questions, how the effect of those things on your operations, how it's probably going to lead you into problems sometime. Just talk about it. Keep educating. You can't fight it, like she says. Keep educating. And at some point, even when you're no longer in that organization, when something happens, someone will remember and say, oh, Matthew was saying this at some point in time, kept saying that this, and, you know, so let's keep talking about it. I don't know if this Fab is ready for us right now before we take on that question. Fab, are you ready? Do you want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself? Fab? Okay. All right. I want to assume it's not ready. Okay, so Moji, let's go to the other three quickly. Moji, let's see how we can quickly rush this. Someone who's an anonymous says, how do we create a culture of continuous documentation with our staff? This person is saying, my staff tend to forget or do not understand the importance of documentation. They see it as over-documenting and a cumbersome process. When we conduct spot checks on file, often it shows missing information on remittance letter, day of payment, details of payment made for renovation, etc. Thanks. So Moji, over to you. This is a big question.
So what I would say is, what is the volume of the job? Is your staff overworked? Because if you are supposed to have people who work in maybe your account department, you know, maybe you're supposed to have like 3 people and it's only 1 person, you can expect that the information will not be complete. And also, what is the skill? How do I want to put it? Like, do they really understand? Because from what she said maybe they seem not to understand. So if they don't understand, you train them. I said something. If you don't train them, so don't blame them. So that is one of the investments that you also have to make in real estate. Training the people to know the importance. And also you talk about they see it as cumbersome. That means it's possible they also have a say. So you might need to sit down on roundtable to say, okay, why do you think this is cumbersome? It might be, do you understand? Why do you think that this is not necessary? So so there's difference between you have to do this or let's sit down and look at why we have to do this. Maybe you need to sit in a roundtable to say, these are important, this is the implication, and so on. So I believe that a line is missing. If it's about training, please, it's our responsibility as employers to train as much as our capacity can carry our staff, and to also keep educating them about the importance, and also invest in other parts. So like my tax lecturer would say, nobody wants to pay tax. So no core business, like maybe if you work maybe in a real estate, for instance, you might be tempted to feel that other departments we can do without you. But it's an investment you need to make, because information is also what's key. So thank you.
Okay, so Moji, you talked about, I mean, the question that anonymous person asked, I think is very instructive, because I remember when you started earlier with the teaching, you talked about how things can land people in jail, how lack of proper documentation can put an organization in a serious problem. And unfortunately, if the person who's supposed to saddle with the responsibility to keep this documentation is not doing this job, if at some point he or she leaves, it becomes the problem of the organization. So I just want to ask, don't you think that aside all that you just said now, with to say if it is cumbersome, if we need more people, if we need to train and retrain people, don't you think people should be sanctioned or punished when they don't do certain things? I'm just curious to say, because don't forget also in this part of the world that people want you to remind them of their responsibilities. People want you to just do that. Don't you think, I mean, with all that you said, do you think I'm just trying to see the mind of this person who asked this question. Is it possible that this person had trained? Is it possible that this person had given the right number of people, and they just still believe that? If you look at that question, it says they feel that you are asking too much, that you're over documenting. So what do you think, beyond what you just said? I'm just asking, don't you think sanctions should be apportioned properly where they should be?
Of course, sir, you are very right, because you need to use the cane and the carrots. You understand? We need to balance things up. People need to be held accountable. And just, but as an employer, know that you have done your best. You understand? Know that you have done your own part. And then it will be insubordination for maybe a principal or a head to be saying, this is what we need. And the employee is feeling that you are over. So because when the ships are down, it's first of all the owners or the managers that will be held responsible. So we should make sure that we have put all processes in order, and we should take a stand. This is what should be done. This is what should be done. And when you have, I don't know, but just use the cane and the carrot. Let's balance.
Okay, I mean, I understand, I know, but these are things that most of the times we don't want to talk about them. I mean, we don't like talking about these things really, but agree with me that seriously, these are things that we just have to, if we're going to get it right, if we're going to get it right, we certainly, I mean, I agree with you totally, but I'm just saying, I'm just trying to read the mind of the man who asked, or person who asked that question, to say, especially with a part of that question. So let's look at other question quickly. It says, how do we, okay, I've answered this, right? This other question says, okay, hold on. This other question says, my office have files over 30 years that they have not used as the owners are late, etc. What should be done with these files, please?
Okay, files over 30 years. Okay, so what I would just immediately think about is that these files are manually kept, right? So if over 30 years, I said it I use 10 to 12 years, but I say use what works for you. And it says that the owners are dead. I don't know if there are some countries that actually says that after 12 years, nobody can hold you accountable. But if the organization still felt that they need to keep all these records, I think they can make it, they can scan it or keep it in cloud, and just so that their office is. So if they are not, I use what your ass can carry. So if their ass cannot carry for them to destroy it, I think they can do something better than just keeping the paper here and there. Because at the end of the day, if there is fire incident, it's still going to be a loss and a loss. So I think it's better if they can do away with them. I don't want to take a stand, but if not, I think they should improve it. They can get someone to use maybe paperless and so on, so that they can scan all those documents if they don't feel comfortable destroying them. They might have.
Okay, thank you, Moji. We have that. Okay, Ajikobi AA. Thank you for asking your question. It says, good afternoon, speaker, host, and listeners. With the advancement of technology in real estate business, how sustainable do you think the manual record keeping, that is bookkeeping, is? I mean, right? Okay, I mean, that's the question. I mean, it's talking about, okay, so the bookkeeping software like AEI Space, how do you think the manual bookkeeping can work out? Do you get that question? Is trying to talk about, with the advent of technology, to what extent do you think we can go with the issue of manual record keeping?
Okay, so like I said, everything is a journey, and even personally in life, we want to improve. There are some things that personally maybe we're not using before, or that kind of phone, Tejusobe, or what they call those kind of phones that you were using before. You don't want to use it. You want to use an iPhone, and you want to improve. So as individual, you really want to improve. So as organization too, like an individual, we should see a way of improving our process, especially if the world is going digital, and if the world does not remain, we cannot be left behind. It's just like the saying that people who are already old has to come back to learn from the young generation, so that they can be able to meet up with what is going on. So there are people who still use the manual. If it still work for them, fine, but they should also have it at the back of their mind that it's time to what? Improve. And like I said, what you are doing now, are you doing it well? No matter how well you are doing it, so, but there's still room for what? There's still room for improvement. But is a process that we need to work for. So I agree with him that it's not sustainable. That's the position I would take. But if you are still using manner, then I can also say that you are wrong as far as you are able to deliver the right information and take the right decision. But there is always room to improve. And the improved one, even maybe reduce the time, you know, and even the number of staff that has to work on those things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I think Jacoby is trying to also clear here. He says the meaning of AEI space is automate everything in one space. That's interesting. Automate everything in one space. Thank you so very much, Jacoby. A very wonderful one. Also, Ubong SN, thank you. Saying wonderful presentation, very simple and rich in content. That's ESV Ubong SN. Thank you so very much, ESV Ubong SN. Thank you so very much for that comment and commendation. We do appreciate it greatly. I can see a whole lot of people on this call. Of course, I'm not going to call. I can see a whole lot of people on this call, but it's fine. I think at this point, I don't know. Okay, I mean, the other person who was supposed to ask questions is no longer, who brought us panelists is no longer there. At this juncture, we want to thank you very much, Moji. Thank you for doing justice to that topic. You said something the other time. Maybe you can interpret. You use one time, Tejumobe. I'm hearing that for the first time. I was like, what was that supposed to mean? You know, but again, you know, it's just to say talking about iPhone or whatever. But again, thank you for that wonderful presentation. I particularly believe strongly for the real estate practitioner as well. On this call will know the importance of record keeping, and for us, we pride ourselves in this issue of record keeping. And I know how tedious this could be, especially when you go where you have a department, the accounting department, telling you have to do this, putting their feet on the ground, this must be done, this has to be done, and which is the right thing, because there must be, just like we said earlier on, there must be checks and balances, which is some of the things that this does for us. So, I mean, for us in the Obosele & Co., we thought it's always important to bring in our experience to bear with regards to the real estate industry. And that's why we have this webinar for this September. And we talked about record keeping. She talked about earlier on the fear of EFCC. I mean, the regulators come to your door, ask for questions. If your records are not clean and your records are not in proper shape, it's a recipe for disaster for you and your organization. So I think it's a wonderful presentation, and I hope we're going to send for as many who are interested in the slide, we're going to send the slide to us. You can use them, you can ask questions, and we're willing to, to interact with us much more time. So I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank you all for staying up to the end of this call, and we wish you a wonderful, that you have a fruitful remainder part of your days. Be fruitful. Thank you very much, and we hope that next month is going to be another time, another exciting time where we're going to be coming with webinar. That's in October. So we want you to keep your ears on the ground. Information should be sent across to us. You can always get this invite so that you can join, and please make it also a duty to invite as many as you can so that we can glean one or two things together, learn together, and make our practice a better one. Thank you very much, and do have a wonderful day. So at this point in time, I want to bring this webinar to a close. I want to wish you the best and ask that you have a beautiful day. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, quickly, I'm seeing one person asking a question here. Thank you so much for your excellent handling of this topic. Your presentation was truly insightful. I'm looking forward to potential season 2. Okay, you want a season 2 of this? Okay, let's see how we can go on that. Thank you very much. All right then, bye.